It was a sunny spring morning on the island of Sodor. Over at the engine shed, everyone was very excited. The Fat Controller had a very important job for one of his engines. "A shipment of animals for the zoo has just arrived. I need a reliable engine to deliver them from Brendam Docks to the zoo right away." "I can do it," said Thomas. But James also wanted to deliver the animals, because he loved to do important jobs. "Can I please take the animals?" said James. "I will be very careful." Thomas could tell that James really wanted to do the job, so he agreed to let James take his place. "You can go, James," said Thomas. "But you must promise to go straight there," warned the Fat Controller. James was very happy. "Of course," he said, puffing out a big cloud of steam. "You can rely on me." The Fat Controller was pleased that Thomas had been so kind to James. "You are a really useful engine, Thomas. I know you would like to help too. So you can go to the station by the zoo to help James when he arrives," he said. "Yes, sir," said Thomas. "It's a big load, James. You will need some help," said the Fat Controller. But who could he get to do it? "Oh, no," groaned James. "Not the troublesome trucks." "Yes, James," said the Fat Controller. "You will have to make sure they behave themselves." "All right," grumbled James. "But how many trucks will I need?" "There's a giraffe, a zebra, an ostrich, an elephant, and a kangaroo to be delivered to the zoo," said the Fat Controller. "2 animals can go in each truck, apart from the elephant. She's very big and will need her own truck," he said. "So that means I'll need 3, said James, and he tooted 3 times on his whistle. Back at the shed, the troublesome trucks were being their usual troublesome selves. "James," said the trucks, "do you know the way to the docks? We don't want to get lost." "Of course," puffed James proudly. "I could find the way with my eyes closed." The trucks grumbled and ground their wheels together, making James's job very difficult. "Come on," said James. "I can't waste any more time. I mustn't be late." James hitched up the troublesome trucks and started on his journey. He was very happy that he had been given such an important job to do. The trucks teased James. "Going to get lost, going to get lost," as they clanked along. James wasn't listening. "This job is so easy," he puffed. "I'm the most important engine on the island." Faster and faster he went. Every time he went round a corner or through a tunnel, he gave a long blast on his whistle to show everyone what an important job he was doing. When he reached the docks, he was in for a big surprise. Instead of 1 boat, there were 5. How could he find out which one held the animals? James was pleased that he had found the right boat, and he rolled down the track to where it was waiting. Far above, he could just see the animals on the deck. But how was he going to get the animals from the boat into the trucks? He looked around to see who could help. "Cranky," James tooted. "I'm glad you're here to help." But Cranky was being cranky. "Come on," he snapped. "I haven't got all day." So James pushed and pulled the trucks until they were in the right place. "Now," said Cranky, "which crate is for which animal?" James was confused. He had no idea that each animal would need a different crate. "You silly steamy," cranked Cranky. "Don't you know which crates I need to use? If you can't tell me, who can?" Once all the animals were safely in the trucks and the crates removed, James pulled slowly out of the docks, being careful not to frighten the animals. He was very proud that he'd been chosen to do such an important job. "I'm the best! I'm the best!" he puffed. Then he had an idea. What if he went to see his friend Bertie on the way? He knew it wasn't the way he was supposed to go, but it wouldn't take long. If he went through Knapford, Bertie could see the animals and he would know what an important engine James was. So when James arrived at the next junction, he decided to go to Knapford instead of straight to the zoo. James chugged merrily through the countryside. He was thinking how surprised Bertie would be when he saw the animals. Then he came to another junction. He looked to the left and looked to the right, but which way was it to Knapford? He couldn't remember. Both tracks looked very familiar. In the end, he decided to go straight on. James was happy that he was going to see his friend Bertie. He also thought about how pleased the Fat Controller would be when he arrived at the zoo on time with all the animals. Back at the engine shed, Thomas saw that it was time to go and meet James at the zoo. "Come on," said his driver. "We have to get going." Thomas puffed up a big cloud of steam and off he went. To the zoo, he wheeshed. Thomas couldn't wait to get to the zoo and went as fast as he could. Then, as he came through a tunnel, he saw a man on the bridge ahead, waving a red flag. "Slow down, Thomas," said his driver, slamming on the brakes. "That means there's been an accident. We have to stop." Thomas's brakes squealed and screeched as he came to a halt just in time. That was close. His driver was right. A lorry had turned over and spilled the toys it was carrying across the track. What a mess! Luckily, Harold was already at the scene. "Don't worry, Thomas," he whirred. "We'll soon have this lot sorted out and you can be on your way." Once all the toys had been cleared, Thomas was ready to be on his way. "Thanks, Harold," said Thomas. "No problem," buzzed Harold. "All part of my job." And he whirred off, humming happily. "Come on, Thomas," said his driver. "We'll have to be quick, or we're going to be late." Thomas didn't want to keep James waiting, so he went as fast as he could. When Thomas arrived at the station, the Fat Controller was waiting for him.
"Ah, Thomas, you're here at last," he said. "But where are James and the troublesome trucks? And where are the animals?"
Thomas was surprised that they hadn't arrived yet. The Fat Controller didn't look very happy, and he took out his watch.
"They should be here by now. It's already 2 o'clock.
James was in the forest.
"Oh dear," he said. "I don't like this at all."
He tried to remember the way he had come.
"I went left, then right again. Oh dear, I think I'm lost."
Behind him, the troublesome trucks grumbled to each other.
"Told you so, told you so."
He stopped and let out a long sigh of steam.
"I must try to remember where I went wrong."
At the station, everyone was wondering what could possibly have happened to James.
"Thomas," said the Fat Controller, "I am worried about James and the animals. I think you'd better go and look for them."
"Yes, sir, right away," said Thomas.
"I am going to send Harold along to help."
Thomas sped off as fast as his wheels could carry him. Then the Fat Controller telephoned ahead to Harold.
"James and some valuable animals are lost. I want you to help Thomas look for them."
Harold was more than happy to help, and he got ready to take off. In the forest, James was well and truly lost.
Oh dear, what can I do now?"
Behind him, the trucks grumbled and groaned.
"We're tired. We need a rest. These animals are heavy."
James couldn't decide what to do. Should he go forward? Should he go back? In the end, he decided to stop right where he was.
"Can we have a rest too?"
said the trucks.
"If we let the animals out, we can rest and they can have something to eat."
James looked at the trucks and then at the animals. They did look hungry. In the end, the trucks made such a fuss that James agreed.
"I don't suppose it can do any harm," he said.
But there was still one problem. Neither James nor the trucks knew what the animals liked to eat. Thomas was puffing along the track as fast as he could go when Harold appeared.
"Hello there, Thomas," he buzzed. "I'm here to lend a hand."
Thomas was very pleased to see Harold. "Harold, you go ahead and search for James. I will get there as soon as I can."
"Right," said Harold. "That's a good idea. I'll be on my way."
He buzzed along as fast as he could, looking carefully for James and the trucks. But the further he went, the cloudier it was. James was very glad to see Harold buzzing overhead.
"I'm here! I'm here!"
he cried.
"Right, James. I'm going to tell Thomas. We'll come back soon."
And off he whirred to tell Thomas the good news. "Well done," said Thomas. "It's lucky you're such a good rescue helicopter, Harold."
"Just doing my duty," said Harold. "Now follow me, and we'll be there in no time."
At last, Thomas, Harold, James, and the troublesome trucks were reunited. "Cinders and ashes, James," puffed Thomas. "Where have you been? The Fat Controller isn't happy at all." James began to explain, and then Thomas saw that the animals were gone. "Where are the animals?" Before James could say anything, the troublesome trucks butted in.
"We told him not to let them out, but he wouldn't listen." But,
said James. "Never mind that, James," said Thomas. "We'd better hurry up and find them. The Fat Controller is waiting." Once all the animals were safely back in the trucks, they were ready to go.
"I'll telephone ahead to the Fat Controller to tell him we're on our way,"
said Harold. "That's a good idea," puffed Thomas. "Don't you think so, James?" But James didn't say anything. He was worrying about how angry the Fat Controller would be when they arrived. On the journey, Thomas made sure they went straight there. When they arrived at the station, the Fat Controller was waiting for them.
"Thank goodness you're here,"
said the Fat Controller, who was very relieved to see them.
"And do you have an explanation for me?"
he said, turning to James. James didn't know quite what to say.
I'm sorry, sir. I promise it will never happen again.
James, you have caused confusion and delay, said the Fat Controller sternly. It's lucky that Thomas and Harold found you so quickly.
Behind him, the troublesome truck snickered.
As for you, he said, looking at the trucks, I've heard all about your tricks from James's driver. You're lucky I don't turn you all into scrap.
The trucks went quiet when they heard that word. Thomas, James, and the trucks all headed towards the zoo. The animals were unloaded and taken to their enclosures. After the party was over, the Fat Controller went to talk to James and Thomas.
Thomas, he said, you did a very good job finding James. You are a very useful engine.
Then he spoke to James.
I hope you've learned a lesson from today.
James looked very sheepish.
Yes, sir. I'm very sorry.
Just remember, said the Fat Controller, always follow the directions and go straight there.
After the Fat Controller had gone, Thomas felt sorry for James. Come on, James. Why don't we go and see the animals in their new homes? When James saw that the animals were settling in comfortably, he felt much better. All the visitors at the zoo were enjoying themselves, and even the Fat Controller seemed to have forgotten about James's little adventure, although James didn't forget the lesson he had learned.